Unpacking Dōgen's Genjōkōan. Episode 6, Firewood and Ash. First, what do we even mean by unpacking? We can define unpacking as the intense scrutiny of traditional Buddhist and Zen texts. A scrutiny that often breaks down the texts, sentence by sentence, term by term, and occasionally word by word. And why even unpack at all? Because not all of us have the opportunity to regularly engage with a living, breathing, enlightened teacher. Understanding that in the Zen tradition, it's this engagement that substitutes for the critical reading of the traditional texts. And so, for those who don't have the opportunity to regularly engage with a living teacher, there must be a return to the traditional texts as teacher. And with that return is the understanding that the texts are best approached as sequences of riddles, or perhaps as sequences of landmines. And these riddles must be reconciled, these landmines cleared, if we are to truly make progress. Let's begin. Consider the following text from Dōgen's Genjōkōan, a letter to a disciple. Firewood becomes ash, and it does not become firewood again. Yet, do not suppose that the ash is after, and the firewood before. Understand that firewood abides in its condition as firewood, which fully includes before and after, while it is independent of before and after. Ash abides in its condition as ash, which fully includes before and after. Just as firewood does not become firewood again after it is ash, you do not return to birth after death. This being so, it is an established way in Buddha Dharma to deny that birth turns into death. Accordingly, birth is understood as beyond birth. It is an unshakable teaching in the Buddha's discourse that death does not turn into birth. Accordingly, death is understood as beyond death. Birth is a condition complete this moment. Death is a condition complete this moment. They are like winter and spring. You do not call winter the beginning of spring, nor summer the end of spring. And in aiding in the unpacking of this brief excerpt, we might consider a handful of questions. First, Dōgen claims that firewood does not become ash in a temporal or causal sense. Yet ash fully includes before and after. How does this distinction challenge the ordinary assumption that phenomena exist within linear time? Next, when Dōgen states that firewood abides in its condition as firewood, and ash abides in its condition as ash, what does he imply about the relationship between a thing's identity and the flow of change? Dōgen denies that birth turns into death, and that death turns into birth. What is he rejecting about conventional notions of personal continuity? And how does this contrast with the idea of reincarnation or rebirth? How does comparing birth and death to winter and spring illuminate Dōgen's view of arising and perishing? In what way does this metaphor undermine narratives of progression or regression? And finally, Dōgen says birth is complete this moment, and death is complete this moment. What does this suggest about the nature of completion? And how does it reshape the reader's understanding of events that appear to be processes unfolding over time? And so we've gotten started on Dōgen's Genjōkōan. More to come.